filter one kite. I'm already into the 420, damn it.
Legacy 420 has medicinal and recreational products down to a science, literally. With 2 biochemists on staff and a chief scientific advisor, every product is tested in the Legacy 420 laboratory. Legacy 420, Tyndonega. Open 9 to 9 every day. Visit legacy420.com.
So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or like.
You know I blame it on industry. I blame it on my own hypocrisy. Miseducation and politicians. No one's willing to step up and speak.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the award-winning Pace Radio Show. We are live here at 420radio.ca. Tonight, I am joined by my host, Julie Chiariello. Hope I got that right, Julie. And she joins me with her special guests. Yes, there are 2 of them, and they are a pair of inventors of something very special. But first, it's time for Julie and I to have a quick gab and get caught up on things. Julie, I haven't talked to you in a month. What have you been up to?
I've just been hard at work. We are right now preparing for the next issue of Skunk Magazine. So I have been in the trenches. We call it herding cats the final week, getting everyone's articles in, and it's going to be a very beautiful issue. Lots of gorgeous imagery and stories. So we're looking forward to that. And Phil and Richard, I'm up here in Willits, California, up near Laytonville, visiting Phil and Richard, the inventors of the Protopipe. So I've been having fun up here. The winter storms have been sweeping through.
You have winter storms in California? You have on a mountain or something? Are you in, like, I just spent literally hours and hours shoveling snow out of my driveway. What do you mean?
Well, here's the deal. All of my Canadian friends know that I put in 4 years hard time with 7 months of winter in Montreal, a.k.a. Narnia is what I call it. And so, I mean, okay, so I've lived in Narnia. I know what you're talking about, and you're right. I can't complain. The winter storm here consisted of, there was snow. The first time in 7 years, every 5 to 7 years, snow will fall in Mendocino County and Eureka and these parts, and it fell this year. So I actually had a night in Eureka with slushy snow covering my boots, and I had a little flashback of Montreal. So I get what you're saying.
So much snow do you get?
It was like, it's a flurry. I mean,
flurry,
like,
yeah, okay, yeah. The ground got wet,
people had, that night, though, was bizarre. It was like, because it's the snow apocalypse, right?
Yeah.
And, Trump America and global warming,
yeah.
And this whole polar stuff that's coming down. So I think that's really what it was about. But even, people were freaking out all around, just, having snow days and, not really know what to do with it, whereas you guys up there are, Viking ice, you guys.
I'll tell you, around here, I can tell you the kids have gotten a lot of time off of school between ice, freezing rains, and snow days, just. They've gotten lots of time off of school, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I heard Hawaii got some snow too, so that's what you call climate change, right?
Yeah, I have a friend who works up there at Haleakala, and they said that was maybe the first time snow had ever fallen in Maui, in Hawaii.
Wow, I can just imagine, yeah.
To me, that's a historical event.
Yeah, because This is why I remember hearing it on the news, because when do you ever hear about snow in Hawaii?
No, never.
Never.
We have Trump electing this vapid environmental, heading the environmental agency that I don't know if you saw her interview, but it was extremely disturbing that here we are, historical ice fall in Hawaii, and she's fussing about, saying that that this is not happening. So it's really a bizarre time to be alive.
This snow that's falling, you're not seeing it.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
That's basically about what sounds like what she was saying. So. Yeah,
exactly. She kept being asked, so tell us, can you give us any data at all from the scientists? And she really couldn't. She couldn't cite a single scientific fact to save her life. So, and having Richard and Phil, for instance, tonight, we're going to get into this a little bit on sustainability and how important it is. So it's really, it's quite a dichotomy that we're living in with, really inspiring people doing incredible things to bring sustainability to the planet and living in a better way. And then you have these, crazy, greedy factions that are just, hell-bent on making sure that we all burn and perish from the face of the earth. The earth will be fine. It's us that's going to get taken out.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. Let's hope we can change things for sure. All right. Well, why don't we bring your guest into the show?
That sounds great. So I have Phil here. Phil is the inventor and industrial designer of the Protopipe and Mendo Pipe. The Protopipe was the world's first self-contained smoking system. And I have Richard, co-owner in Protopipe and Mendo Pipe, his brother. And he is, they're going to be discussing tonight the invention, their journey. They invented the pipe back in 1970. And they've also, they're going to be discussing their innovative life-size green building system called Gridbeam. And think of it like an Erector set on steroids, big Legos that you can build an actual house with. Gridbeam is one of the roots of the maker movement, which is sweeping the world and is very exciting. And so we'll be, touching on that, and then we'll finally be touching on Richard's incredible collection of cannabis print media from his Cannabis Culture Museum, he has some pieces dating all the way back to early last century. So an incredible collection, one of the best I've seen. And so that's tonight.
That sounds awesome. All right, guys. Well, Phil and Richard, hey, welcome to the Pace Radio Show.
Thank you very much. Yeah, this is Phil, and my brother Richard is here. He'll say hi.
Hi, Al.
Hi, how you doing?
Excellent. It's a wonderful evening here.
Good.
Great to be on the show here with you and Julie. Thank you.
Hey, well, we appreciate you coming on the show, and I look forward to hearing about your story, about your pipes, and everything else that we're going to touch on tonight. And just so you guys know, usually what we do here is I just hand the reins over to my joint host, and tonight is Julie, and she can start asking the questions, and I'll just pop in every once in a while as the show goes along.
Okay, I'm your joint host, and I do have a joint in hand, Al.
Good. I've got a bong here beside me, so I'm going to enjoy that.
Thank you, Al. And we have a couple of Protopipes on the table.
No, that's the Mendo Pipe.
Oh, and then the Mendo Pipe, yes. So speaking of, Protopipe was the world's first self-contained smoking system. And so I wanted to start with you and just touch on, you created this back in 1970. What inspired you? What was the idea? How did you, start to tinker around with this design, and why?
Oh, gosh. I would say it actually started a lot earlier than that. And I would say a lot of this is due to reading popular magazines such as Popular Mechanics, Popular Science. I loved reading those and was always inspired by the promise of technology and what it could do for us. I've always been an artist, and I guess it was about 1968. I had just got out of the hospital. I had an undiagnosed disease that was kind of killing me until they figured out a treatment for it. Anyway, when I got out of the hospital, I weighed a mere 100 pounds, and I'm 6 foot tall. And so a friend turned me on to some marijuana, and I had the biggest case of the munchies. But besides giving me pretty wild ideas, I found it to be very inspiring, and I realized immediately this is an important design tool. There's nothing like getting an overview on a project when you're, especially in the early stages, when you're doing initial design. It's difficult to step back from it sometimes and get another point of view. Sometimes you have to wait a day or two to look at your results. I also found by smoking pot, that is another way to get many new views of the project that you're working on. And I think of pot as a focusing device. It really allows me as a designer and artist to get into detail, and it just keeps my attention. So that's sort of where it started. And again, in 1968, that's when a friend turned me on to pot. It really changed my life. I found it to be an incredible healing substance, and I kind of consider myself one of the first medical patients who, of course, self-treated back then. So it's a miracle.
So then you were tinkering around. So then what drew you, since you were a user, then why did you design this?
Well, as a kid, and I loved cars and model cars, which led to, in the mid-'60s, there was a movement called slot racers, and there were tracks. There are still some around where people bring in their little cars. They're about 1/24th scale, which means they're about, under a foot long. They're 6 inches or so. They're different scales, and they race around a track. And before even the kits were out, there were magazines that published and showed you how to make these things. And one of the techniques was working with brass. So, at like age 14, I began building my own little race cars, putting electric motors in them. And by the way, those electric slot cars led me later on to begin a series of building full-size electric vehicles. Ever since those little slot cars, I've loved the idea of an electric car. Anyway, it was those early experiments and building of those vehicles, those little slot racers. We built our own track. We had one in our garage. And then, of course, the commercial kits began coming out, and it was quite commercialized. That now has been replaced by radio control electric cars and electric airplanes. There's, of course, been a revolution in the last 20 years with those things. So anyway,
so it's like a little spaceship, essentially.
It is.
And the design is very unique because it's all self-contained. You have your poker, your chamber, and now with the new, we're going to get into this later, but just, so it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's an ergonomic, I realized from back when I started smoking, there were very few choices of pipes on the market. And I realized that one of the things that you need when you're smoking weed is something to stir it with. Car keys don't work, and you're always looking for a twig or something to stir your bowl. And so I thought, well, that's an essential thing, and you want to carry something. And so,
yeah, beautiful.
Just that's how that evolved.
So around this time now, this is I love, is it's 1969, 1970. You're over in San Francisco. It's the summer of love, which I swear I'm from that time, even though I was born in 1976. And, you know, it's counterculture, it's amazing time. And there you are. And Richard, I wanted to give you the floor and just figure out, like, what drew you, and, you know, being a collector of counterculture materials, I just want to touch on, you know, what inspired you to come out and be with your brother Phil, and tell us a little bit, everyone, about the magic of that time and, you know, what was inspiring you to get together with Protopipe.
With foundation there. City indeed is the mother of invention, and I observed him creating some prototype smoking pipes, and for various reasons, and then by moving from aluminum to brass, then everything started falling into place, and immediately after it was created, and it was quite inspirational, I got to say. It came together rather effortlessly once Phil started making it. So I immediately had to make the second one. And, you know, it was just the coolest thing because it solved a problem that everyone was having. And So, Phil moved to San Francisco, and because you couldn't launch a business in Denver, Colorado back then, it was very, very conservative state, and boy, have things changed.
I was going to say the same thing.
who is now leading the way, but I don't want to speak for Phil, but basically he decided to launch the business where the totem drum was being beat, and that was in San Francisco. And I got a call from him several months later saying, "Hey, I've got a warehouse space. I've been building walls. Why don't you come on out and let's launch this thing?" So I had recently become a college dropout. Because I got my draft card number, and that's why most of us were in college back then, was to avoid going to the Vietnam War. And so I got my draft card number was 36, which gave me freedom to do whatever I wanted to do. I didn't have to stay in college because I didn't want to be in college. And so I packed up and moved out to San Francisco and joined Phil there. And I still have, my mother started me on my collection. I have to say, she was the artist of the dining room table for Phil and I to read. And on the cover of it was 12 million Americans have tried it. And it was a hand holding a joint. And that was in 1969. And that was, probably the first piece that I've been packing around ever since. And it's kind of became the foundation of my collection.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, and so that time was a really wild time because people were, it was the age of Aquarius, and it's a time that speaks to me because, really when Al asked me to come on and do the show, my focus was on the Green Renaissance and this idea that a Renaissance is happening on the planet. It's been happening, I think it started back in the French salons, with Gertrude Stein and, all these, rebel thinkers that all got together and were riffing. And then you have the beats and you have, the zoot suiters and the hippies. And then, people thought, oh, it's dead or we failed. And no, not at all. We went through the crazy 80s with the Reagans, but, now we're coming back into a new movement, and you have maker movement, you have organics, you have sustainable movements, self-sufficiency movements, and so I just wanted to give a chance, take turns, Richard and Phil, whoever wants to go first. But I'd love you both to have a chance to speak on, because for me, both of you really are living, breathing Renaissance men who bridge ancient wisdom with modern technology and modern sensibilities. But you actually intelligently apply as much of the knowledge that you've gained for the good of not just yourselves, but for the good of your community, for the good of humanity. And this is the kind of change we want to see on the planet. We see a lot of people doing for themselves, and that's kind of what's sick in our society. So I wanted to give you guys a chance to talk about, your devotion each as men on your own journey in the world to try and bring sustainable change. And whoever wants to go first.
Okay, this is Phil, and I guess I would say part of my journey has been, I suppose, from those early magazines. They had lots of articles on how to build your own houses, and they were very inspiring and got me into working with my hands. That led, I also collected a lot of books. And one of the books that I came across, I believe it was published in 1974 by a designer who also wrote for Popular Science named Ken Isaacs. And Ken had been doing lots of experiments with tiny houses and modular building systems. And so I purchased his book. I can't quite remember the name of it. Richard, How to Build Your Own Living System is what it was called, by Ken Isaacs. In there was a system that he named Matrix, which was based on 2x2 pieces of wood drilled with a repeating hole pattern. The holes were all the way through on all four sides, about every 6 inches. Anyway, it was like a construction set. It was not really well developed, but the bones, the basic idea was there, and Ken must have had a dozen different projects that he called living cubes, where you can change the architecture of these things. It's like as Julie said, a giant Erector set, or a giant set of Legos. I like to tell people you become the Lego man when you build with Gridbeam. But anyway, we improved on Ken's system and actually ended up putting it into a small amount of some production. I would call it limited production. We have a solar-powered shop where we manufacture Gridbeam. Anyway, it's a new way to prototype the future. And I think that's something that we all need to do. Everybody wants to reinvent themselves. Everybody should want to reinvent themselves because the times are always changing. Circumstances change. Events happen. Storms happen. Fires happen. Things happen to us. Plans don't always go the way we think. And having the ability to adapt to new situations and build new types of machines. That's the kind of stuff that you can do with this material. It's called Gridbeam. And Gridbeam is also an open source building system, which means we have no patents. Anyone can make their own. All you need is a drill press. And you can buy 2x2s at a good lumber yard and actually make your own. One of the powerful things about Gridbeam is we have standardized the sizes of these, and it's based on common building materials. What we did is we increased the number of holes in it and cut them to modular lengths. And it just allows one to rapidly build new ideas. We've done about 30 different pieces of furniture. Let's say if you need to move, you can take your furniture apart, and flat packs. You can fit an entire living room of furniture in a small car because it all breaks down into very small pieces, and it can be reassembled thousands of different ways. And I know I'm kind of skipping around here and explaining this, but we just smoked some really terrific weed. And so
just to help you there with because and this is why I really invited you guys on the show. I mean, for many reasons, but in terms of who you are as a Renaissance man, this idea that, you know, up until recent history, if we wanted something, we built it. If you wanted a house, you built it. If you wanted a bench, you built it. If you wanted, and so it was really this idea now that has kind of sickened our society is that humans have forgot just how capable they really are and how they can have the power to, if you need it, you don't need to go to IKEA, you don't need to go to Home Depot, you can build it yourself, you know, or if you need to get healed, you can heal yourself, you know. And so all of these different movements from cannabis to mushrooms to the maker movement, and this, you answered it perfectly, that this is your devotion as a man on the planet to help people find their resourcefulness again, their capability again, their strength again, their imagination, their sense of fun. So this is your devotion as a man, if you don't mind me summing it up, and I can give the floor to Richard or to speak about.
Let's pass the mic over to Rick.
How do you feel about being a Renaissance man?
Well, thank you very much for thinking of me that way. There's a million things that can be said about. I guess the topic is Gridbeam right now, but.
Renaissance man.
Renaissance man. Well, thank you.
Not Gridbeam yet.
Okay.
Just basically, you know, who you are as a man that's devoted to all of these things, you know, the back to land movement, organic, sustainability, self-sufficiency. You know, I've been blessed to spend some time with you, you know, and your humanity. So to share, you know, why is this important? You know, why is this your devotion and all these different things that you've devoted your time to? Just more, you know, who you are as a man in the world for our listeners.
Well, I have to say that an incredible opportunity presented itself earlier this last spring, and I joined Phil again in a new venture in a shop setting that I currently haven't had the luxury of having, and so to have this new 4,000 square foot facility to manufacture things and to brainstorm and chase dreams and fabricate dreams. And they can be big dreams because we have a really tall ceiling. And it's just a real joy to do the shop dance. And with this technology that Phil was talking about, it makes everybody a maker, and allows you to builds tremendous confidence. It's so much fun being with children. We teach classes at various kids clubs and maker shows and so forth. It's so much fun to be with children and show them this technology and to watch them light up and immediately begin inventing stuff. And their parents are just amazed and stunned at watching their kids create. And so very rewarding ushering in this extremely green product. It's got Green Renaissance written all over it. And we've been, pursuing that for several decades, dare I say, and written a couple of books on it. And it's been pretty. It's been a difficult journey marketing it because it fits into so many different market areas. We've had difficulty focusing because we've been shotgunning, and And most recently, we've really identified education is a tremendous area to focus on. And so that's been extremely rewarding, again, working with children and young people and seeing the light bulbs going off in their head when they feel the joy of inventing.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that, because, I feel like, with the cannabis industry and with the Protopipe and the Mendo Pipe and what you guys have done, it's kind of this idea of creating vehicles that guide you towards wonder, that guide you towards connection, that guide you towards joy. And Gridbeam, and the reason why, I really wanted to bridge into this is that Gridbeam, they wrote a book, How to Build with Gridbeam. And, this idea is like, why are we using cannabis? Is it just, for ourselves, for selfish reasons? I mean, for me personally, cannabis and other plant allies have shown me that I need to help protect the planet. I need to help be a steward, a servant. It's just natural. It awakens in you this remembrance of your innate connection. And so, the reason why I wanted to touch on more deeply Gridbeam, even though it's not specifically focused with cannabis, to me it so relates. And the reason why is because we are supposed to become healthier, more whole, more connected, more empowered through the use of cannabis. If we're not applying those principles, then what the heck are we doing? So I wanted to, give you guys a chance. If you want to touch on anything else, I'm
gonna jump in here. I'm gonna jump in here, and we're gonna touch on a commercial break.
Okay.
All right. Good. I wanted to make sure that the two of them got to answer your question before we went to the break. So I was just waiting on that. So.
Thank you.
All righty. Okay, hey guys, being that this is about your pipes and stuff as well, what I've done is I've picked out a song as we go into the commercial break. I'll play a little bit of a song, and the same as when we come back from the break. And I try to match up the song to our guests. So tonight I was able to find a song to deal with pipes. So what we're going to hear is a song by the group called the BT Express and the song Peace Pipe. And when we get back, Julie and I will continue our conversation with our guests Phil and Richard. And you're listening to the Pace Radio Show, and we are live here at 420radio.ca.
Hey, this is Cheech. And this is Chong. And you're listening to Lifestyle Radio. What is it? Lifestyle Radio. Say it one more time. 420 Radio? Ooh.
Hang up and try again.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
Legacy 420 has medicinal and recreational products down to a science, literally. With 2 biochemists on staff and a chief scientific advisor, every product is tested in the Legacy 420 laboratory. Legacy 420, Tyendinaga. Open 9 to 9 every day. Visit legacy420.com.
Are you looking for cannabis news, education, and people's opinions? Are you looking to learn what Canadian and international cannabis advocates are doing, not only now, but what got them to this point in their lives, and what does the future hold for them? Do you want to learn how patients are using cannabis as their daily medication, or learn how their cannabis use helps them with their medical condition? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then I'm going to suggest to you to tune in to Lifestyle Radio. Catch their live weekly shows and have your questions and concerns answered and find the experience you're looking for. Monday, catch your weekly news broadcast with the Reef Reporters. Then on Wednesday, get several hours worth of cannabis public education. We get things started with Cannabis and Coffee with Tamarijuana. Finish up your evening with the award-winning Pace Radio Show with Al Graham, and no week would be complete without tuning into Friday night's program, the 420 Radio Show featuring Al Rapp and the 420 Radio crew, Mary Jane Baker and Marcel Gagnac. Cannabis is a lifestyle, and you can catch all your cannabis lifestyle information right here at 420radio.ca. An apple a day won't keep this doctor away, but a gram of cannabis may keep you away from the doctor. Find out how by tuning into The Higher Estate with Dr. Ira Price, Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, only here at 420radio.ca. Tune in to DJ Passion from the land of Ganja, the island of Jamaica, when he comes to you live every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on 420radio.ca.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Canadays, your friendly neighborhood Campbellford head shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Let us help you grow your 4 with weekly Tuesday night gardening sessions for beginners. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. Canadays, more than just a head shop. 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Hello and welcome. We are back and we are the Pace Radio Show, and yes, we are live here at 420radio.ca. Today in the program, we're joined by our guests, Phil and Richard Jergenson, the inventors and the owners of Protopipe and Mendo Pipe, plus our new joint host, the skunk owner, co-owner, Julie Chiariello. Hello, Julie. Let's see, we talked about a bunch of stuff before the break on a project that the guys are working on. I'd also like to get going in this session here on a few questions about their pipe.
Great.
All right.
That's awesome.
All right. Okay, guys. When I think about pipes, there's I've heard the name, and without any research, I probably wouldn't have known a lot about it. But pipes. I think of pipes can be wooden, they can be metal, they can be glass. Your pipes are.
They're solid brass, alloy 360, and the tubing is called cartridge brass, and the brass has an amazing ability to pull the heat out and cool the smoke.
Nice, very nice.
Yeah, so it takes about 70 different machining operations to make the new Mendo pipe. I've added quite a few features over what the most popular pipe was for the longest time. That was the Protopipe, which all of these are an evolution. None of these pipes happened in one fell swoop. It started with a very simple design of just a basic bowl with a stash pod that with a small twist, it locked into the main bowl on the back of the pipe, where there is a poker next to it, conveniently located, and a tube on next to that, which is the draw tube, the stem that you draw the smoke through. So it actually turned into an elegant, simple little design in the first place. That was originally when I put that out on the market in about 1970. one. It was called the Smoking Contrivance, and that was kind of a crappy name, but that's what it was. And it didn't have a cover. It was shorter, and that was from that when I first arrived in San Francisco. I rented a warehouse. I should say we rented a warehouse there for about a year and attempted to make the pipes. And I only had one drill press at the time, a very primitive setup. I was a complete amateur machinist. And I really didn't know. There was no internet. I did buy books. But machinery, actually, we did not have the huge amount of import machinery that's available to us today, very, very cheaply. Back then, it was, mainly American-made tools, which I still consider, of course, the best in the world. But they were very expensive, and I didn't understand the manufacturing process. So with a device like that had so many holes drilled in it, they had to be perfectly accurate. So, I had to break that machine down half a dozen times and change it, and I had very, very high losses. And so...
yeah,
that does happen, eh?
And plus, I underestimated how much they should retail for, and I had a retail price then of $7. I've looked back at some of the early ads that I'd placed, and it's like $7. It was so unbelievably underpriced because they took forever to make. I don't know what I would. Now back then, minimum wage. Yeah, what was I smoking? As Richard just said, minimum wage was $1.60 an hour, and you could still get a hamburger for 50 cents and things like that. So,
wow.
That often happens with owner inventors. Is you're thinking about getting the thing done and the coolest it can be, and then on the back end you're like, oh shit, how am I gonna make money off this thing now that I've built it out, and what is that magic price?
Yeah, exactly. Because I was reading some information here on the pipe, and it's got things on it that obviously pipes don't normally have. There are some pipes out there that do have, you got a storage container in this, from what I've read.
Yeah.
Really, it clicks in place, and it's perfectly cylindrical, so you can have a really nice stash in there for a whole day of hiking or a whole day out on the town. And then you have the lid that you can close so it keeps your bowl safe. It's like a little spaceship. And
actually, every piece in it is round in one of its dimensions, every single piece. As a designer, I love circles, and I enjoy that aspect of it, that it's a whole bunch of circles put together into a solid machine.
Now, this thing these pipes have got something on it I've never seen in a pipe. You could say you could maybe in a bong and stuff, but not in a hand pipe like this. It's got a bowl that collects oil.
No. It has what it has is a resin trap underneath it's a resin chamber that allows easy clean out.
Okay, all right.
The Protopipe had a little round plug, a cylindrical plug called a resin trap that constantly got stuck. This is one of the big problems with that, with the Protopipe. I'm sure hundreds of thousands of people have cursed at it because they couldn't get the resin trap out. You put the poker through the middle draw hole, and it's supposed to easily push out. But if you've left the pipe sitting for several, let's say a month or so, and that resin dries out, it sort of turns into a glue. You can heat it with a lighter, and that usually melts it and or soak it in alcohol.
Yeah, I think that's a standard problem with a lot of
It is.
The tar builds up.
Yeah, but anyway, the new Mendo pipe. I put a whole new type of bottom on it. There's no more of that stuck resin trap. This one swivels open and closed, And one of the surprisingly great things was it goes 10 times longer between cleanings. With the Proto, you were constantly cleaning it. About every 5 or 6 times you used it, you'd have to push that little plug out and clean that part out. And this new one goes, again, 50 or more times between you have to clean it, maybe even 100 times. It goes at least 10 times longer.
It's really cool.
And there's no parts to lose. I've reduced the number of parts from 4 now to 3. And it's just a much more solid design.
And it swivels open really smooth, Al. We got a simple one. But the bottom, it just swivels open really smooth. I have it in my hand right now. And then all
and like
resin the resin is there, and you just scoop it right out. It's just super easy.
Nice.
The whole thing was designed to be field cleanable. There's nothing worse than, being out on a camping trip and your pipe is clogged up and you have no way to clean it.
Oh, for sure.
So it was, I realized early on that there's a lot of resins that build up when you're smoking that you've got to constantly maintain them in all kinds of pipes. So cleaning
you have to.
Was an essential design. That's what was really important. That and the convenience. All of the parts are very easy to operate. It's ergonomically, it works really well. It's just kind of a lucky design accident by, I was just really kind of a kid. I think I was about 20 when I started working on that. And now I'm about to turn 71, and here I am still doing it.
Still doing it, 50 years later. Way to go.
Yeah.
But he doesn't look 71. Neither. The brothers, they're all of this imagining and things, they look, 20 years younger than they are. It's pretty amazing.
Cannabis. That's the cannabis helping to stop the aging look. Now, you mentioned, like, I'm looking, like I said, I'm looking at this picture here. They look nice and shiny. As mentioned, they're made out of copper. Now, some people, when they think about metal pipe, because copper is a metal, you'll get a metal taste. Does that? Do you get?
There can be a taste if you haven't used the pipe for a couple of weeks. I think the first puff or so, there can be a slight metallic taste, but personally, I cannot tell a difference, but that just might be me.
Well,
I get that thing going. It's
but it's brass, not copper.
Yeah,
just
that's right. Yeah, exactly. That's why. Normally, you see, you go into a head shop. Like I said, you see glass pipes and stuff. You see metal pipes there, and you think, "Geez, what kind of metal is that?" It's. Is it something that should be inhaled? And so it's good to see that yours is made here with copper.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's interesting. Like just to give the listeners, because many listeners might know, I've had people reaching out to me and say, I still have my prototype. People from the 70s and 80s and even 90s. I've had people of all different age groups tell me that they still have their prototype, and it was shipped all over the world, and it was kind of had this kind of really devoted fan base because the pipe is indestructible. It lasts forever. I mean, I just dropped one accidentally. Sorry. It went tumbling and it was just nothing. I mean, it's an indestructible little pipe. And with the bowl closed,
it's protected.
It could take licking. Oh yeah.
Can you use it with when you've lit the bowl, can you close that lid to protect it from the elements, or will it go out?
Yeah, that was one of the early ideas. Is there was a time when pot was really, really expensive, and also people the lid was put on it to take a single puff and then close it up and put it in your pocket. You don't have to smoke a whole joint.
Right.
Nowadays, it's called micro-dosing, where
Correct.
you oftentimes you just need the smallest amount. And oftentimes, if you smoke too much, then you really can't focus. Sometimes you just need just a little bit. And so the lid allows you to take just a little puff and then close it right up. And you'll save it for the future. And it's just not there burning away like, let's say, a joint or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I never could roll a good joint. And also, no need to.
You're good with your hands, though.
Why do you need to worry about a joint when you got an excellent pipe, right?
That's right.
It's true.
Yeah.
I love my joints, though. Richard,
So do I.
The science of the design of that you appreciate, or anything with the new Mendo pipe that you want to mention?
Well, let's see. I guess to take it back to my beginning, being a younger brother to Phil, of course, I immediately had to replicate that first pipe. So I immediately got on the little machine, the lathe, and made my own. And didn't realize it until I showed it to Phil, and he cracked up because I made a left-handed pipe. And, of course, his was right-handed because he's right-handed. And, my mind just, I'm probably dyslexic or something. But anyway, I have what I believe is probably the only left-handed prototype out of, I don't know how many millions of them were made. But anyway, that was just kind of fun.
Yeah.
But back on a joint, I go back also to 1968. But back in those days, there weren't any pipes other than going to the plumbing store or buying a corncob pipe.
Oh yes.
And since I didn't know how to roll, of course, you could always buy a rolling machine, which were kind of fun, but they were big and bulky, and you had to hide them from your parents.
Yeah.
And so, we would take, we'd bum a cigarette from somebody that smoked tobacco and squeeze out all of the tobacco, and then repack it using a pencil as a ramrod.
Yeah.
And it had a filter on it, by the way. So, and also that way you would blend in with the general public because everybody, of course, smoked tobacco.
Yeah.
But if you didn't know how to roll, that's how we rolled, if you will.
And you were, like you said, so going back to what you said, there wasn't really there wasn't options for pipes. So when the prototype came out, it took off because the solution. Right?
That brings up marketing, and Phil can tell you that story. Since we failed that first batch, we had to go get jobs, and I got a job at a pillow factory in San Francisco, and that was quite fascinating because I got to drive a delivery truck all over the Bay Area and delivering these giant pillows to waterbed stores. New innovation, sleeping on these water bladders. And so the Bay Area was extremely innovative and home to a lot of new thinking and new products. And so I would drive around the Bay Area to these waterbed stores, and some of them sold tapestries and record albums, and some of them were dabbling in what then was called smoking paraphernalia. So they'd have a little section of rolling papers over here, and maybe some clips and some pipes and incense and posters, absolutely. And
start of the head shop.
And it was the beginning of what came to be called head shops. And so it was a wonderful exposure for me. And every delivery that I made all over the Bay Area, I was completely reinforced by this brilliant product that was waiting to get relaunched. And I got sidetracked trying to make some money for a couple of years, and on a couple of occasions I remember sending Phil money so that he could place these little mini ads. I say mini, that's M-I-N-I, really tiny little 1-inch ads in the back of Rolling Stone magazine. And he got fabulous results on those. So go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay, what I was wondering before we go to the break here, as far as your pipes, you just mentioned, sounds like a lot of them have been sold. Is this directly through you guys, or are they available in businesses across Canada or across the country? Are they available in other countries?
Actually, we're just processing an order from a dispensary in Calgary.
Nice.
It's our first Mendo order crossing state lines, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, just to give a quick update on that, it's just that Protopipe, basically, the guy has sold Protopipe 30 years ago to another person. And then they went on to do their own things with Gridbeam, the building system, and Richard started the Cannabis Culture Museum, or he had been doing it since the 70s. But and so then they just recently purchased the company back, and they renamed the pipe Mendo Pipe. Look, Phil's going to clarify the facts, but I mean, the point being is that they're relaunching Mendo Pipe as of last year with a brand new design, an evolution of the Protopipe is the Mendo Pipe, and it's just getting cranking. And so, people are, they're calling up old head shops and old accounts that are going, wow, you guys are back, and you're back with an improved design. So literally, it's beginning now to ship globally. Orders are rolling in, and the excitement is building.
Good.
Yeah. Hi, this is Phil, and I'll clarify a few points there.
Okay.
And actually, one of them is it was actually my girlfriend and I that started making the Mendo Pipe about 4 years ago. We had, as Julie said, we sold the Protopipe 30 years ago to a friend at the time. And over the years, he made lots and lots of money. And I just have to say, I guess he sort of invested it badly because he's just kind of taken that into a hole. He lost the company. I should say he hadn't paid rent in his space for several years. He was floundering, and I can't give the reasons why. I would stop in occasionally and try to find out, and I realized he's going down. There's still a huge demand. The pipe needs redesigning. So my girlfriend and I, at the time, launched this. That was 4 years ago. And it was set up in my living room, basically. About a dozen drill presses, a lathe, milling machines, lots of steel bench work. And that's where we began manufacturing the new and better Mendo Pipe. About 9 months ago, we got a call from the landlord that had the building that Protopipe was in, said he had evicted the Protopipe. Michael was the guy who we literally gave the company to him back then for a whole bunch of legal reasons, which it'd probably be almost too much to get into in this. But anyway, we were given an opportunity to move back into that original Protopipe factory. Michael had moved all of the Protopipe equipment out, so there was really nothing but lots and lots of, let's just say 30 truckloads have gone to the recycler. We've tried to find new homes. There was like thousands of parts of a bicycle shop, and we donated that to a nonprofit group that rebuilds bicycles. So we've tried to find appropriate homes for things. There's still lots of shelving and cabinets, and because we have an art department here, and we just brought on a new commercial artist named Larry Todd. And so we have an art department. Let's see, I think I'm getting a little off my subject here.
Yeah.
That's
I I know Al wants to go to a break, but I appreciate you letting them know. You know, Richard, why I got confused on the dates is Richard just came on in November, and really now they're really starting to ramp up this new Mendo pipe and really bring it back. So hopefully that answers your question, Al, in terms of, you know, where the pipe is available and kind of the background on the fact that, you know, it was a very strong global brand and then it lost its footing, and now the guys are back stronger than ever and ready to,
I should just
it's good to get a bit of history like that too. What's that?
Yeah, one quick thing, and that is that we are really automating. We've just moved in many tons of real manufacturing equipment. We just put in what's called a machining center, also a 50-ton punch press. We'll be making all of our own parts from scratch. Nothing will be jobbed out. So I'm really excited about that. We're putting together pretty much a full metal fabrication shop, and the Mendo is our lead product at the moment. So.
And made in USA.
Made in USA. Made in.
Handmade. Yep.
Yeah.
That's handmade, exactly. All right, guys, it's time for us to take that break, all right? And time for our listeners to hear some more of the BT Express and their song Peace Pipe. And then Julie and I will continue this conversation with our guests, Phil and Richard Jergenson. You're listening to the Pace Radio Show. We are live here at 420radio.ca.
So what are you doing? Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
Add a spoon of brotherly love.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Cannadays, your friendly neighborhood Campbellford head shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Let us help you grow your four with weekly Tuesday night gardening sessions for beginners. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. Cannadays, more than just a head shop. 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Are you looking for cannabis news, education, and people's opinions? Are you looking to learn what Canadian and international cannabis advocates are doing? Not only now, but what got them to this point in their lives, and what does the future hold for them? Do you want to learn how patients are using cannabis as their daily medication, or learn how their cannabis use helps them with their medical condition? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then I'm going to suggest to you to tune in to Lifestyle Radio. Catch their live weekly shows and have your questions and concerns answered and find the experience you're looking for. Monday, catch your weekly news broadcast with the Reef Reporters. Then on Wednesday, get several hours worth of cannabis public education. We get things started with Cannabis and Coffee with Tamarawana. Finish up your evening with the award-winning Pace Radio Show with Al Graham, and no week would be complete without tuning into Friday night's program, the 420 Radio Show featuring Al Rapp and the 420 Radio crew, Mary Jane Baker and Marcel Gignac. Cannabis is a lifestyle, and you can catch all your cannabis lifestyle information right here at 420radio.ca. An apple a day won't keep this doctor away, but a gram of cannabis may keep you away from the doctor. Find out how by tuning into The Higher Estate with Dr. Ira Price, Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, only here at 420radio.ca. Tune in to DJ Passion from the land of Ganja, the island of Jamaica, when he comes to you live every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on 420radio.ca.
Legacy 420 has medicinal and recreational products down to a science, literally. With 2 biochemists on staff and a chief scientific advisor, every product is tested in the Legacy 420 laboratory. Legacy 420, Tyndanaga. Open 9 to 9 every day. Visit legacy420.com.
Everybody get a little bit. Peace. And smoke it around. All the world done hang on. Europe. Africa. Asia. Germany. Smoke it around. And pass it around.
So
Hey, welcome back, and thanks for tuning into the Pace Radio Show. We are being broadcasted live here at 420radio.ca. And if you can't catch the live show, you can always listen to the podcast afterwards. They're on Spreaker, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, as well as other social media apps. You can find us there. Tonight, we featured the music of BT Express and the song Peace Pipe. Yeah, BT Express, which originally was named the Brooklyn Transit Express, was an American funk disco group that had a number of successful songs back in the 70s. If you enjoyed them, check them out on YouTube, because I'm sure you'll find them there, as well as other locations. Today on the program, we're joined by our guests, Phil and Richard Jergenson, and they are the inventors and the owners of the Protopipe and Mendo Pipe, as well as our new joint host, Julie I'm going to mess it up again. Chiariello of the co-owner of Skunk Magazine. Well, Julie, Richard, and Phil, we're into the last segment of the program. I know you guys got lots of stuff I want to talk about. So let's, where do you want to go, Julie?
Yeah, well, I wanted to talk about a little bit about Cannabis Culture Museum that Richard has been curating. And also, you know, touch on this counterculture idea, this, you know, back to the land movement that was happening in the late 60s and 70s. And I wanted him to touch real quick on the history, because I feel like a lot of people will find it fascinating about the migration, the mass migration of people from the city up to the Emerald Triangle, and how many of them were keyed into this sustainable movement.
Okay, I guess this is Richard. I'll pick that up for a couple of minutes. Yes, after the big cultural peak following the Summer of Love in San Francisco, 1967. The bubble kind of started to burst, and all the was kind of turning, and San Francisco Police Department were determined to clean the streets and the parks. There were so many people living in Golden Gate Park and makeshift shelters and so forth. And sanitation is always going to be one of the underlying issues for I'm not sure what the word is, but anyway, sanitation or lack of sanitation is always a determining factor in cultural movements, or so it seems. So the streets got swept clean in San Francisco, and all these people that had converged there from all over the country, mostly all young people, all of a sudden they have to leave, and many of them didn't want to go back home for various reasons. And so word was getting out that there was affordable land north of Golden Gate Bridge. And the further north you went, the cheaper the land got. And so many people made it up to Sonoma County and Mendocino County and Humboldt County, and the affordable land had been the forests had been extracted. It was a timber economy back then, and these giant redwoods and fir trees fell under the chainsaw. And once the trees were gone, developers came in and bought the land and parceled it up into 40-acre parcel, 20-acre parcels, and sold it to all these young, aspiring people that were looking for affordable land. And back in the early to mid '70s, you could buy acreage for $200 to $300 an acre with ocean views. And they weren't, the land wasn't denuded, but all the saleable timber had been extracted. So we were now into second and third growth timber. But for everyone that was coming up here, it was just all paradise, and it was all nirvana and very affordable. And a lot of people pooled their money together to buy pieces of property. And other people that were like very well off, they might have opened their land up to people. And that happened in a couple of communes in Sonoma County. And it was health issues that ultimately got the projects shut down. But so all these people are converging up where the land is affordable, up in Sonoma and Mendocino and Humboldt County, and people have to buy. You have to live somewhere, and many of them came up in trailers and started living in a trailer or a tent. There's going to be a great interview in the upcoming Skunk magazine with a woman, Maria Mills. Pebbles Trippett interviews her, and Maria tells her wonderful story of living in a plastic visqueen hut during a pretty heavy winter. Wow. Up in Humboldt County. But her story could be told hundreds, if not thousands of times. And eventually people were able to, build their own homes and so on and so forth. But I forget the specifics of the question.
Just that this back to land movement and what really, started it. And we can segue into the fact that, you're an art curator, you're a historical, archive person, and you're
the
actually
museum.
And he has an upcoming film series. Well, he does film series, and one of them is on the solar energy, how it began and how it's intimately tied in with the cannabis industry. So you could touch on that and segue into your museum if you like. Yeah,
I'd be happy to. So next, let's see, that would be March, St. Patty's Day, March 17th, here in Willits at the Little Egg Grange. We're going to be showing the documentary called Solar Roots, which is a documentary on not only the history of solar energy, but more to the point, it's going to focus on the solar pioneers, the many men and women that got involved in selling photovoltaic panels to these back to the lander new settlers that had recently migrated up here in search of chasing their own dreams. And so, it was I knew that it was a fascinating story. It was as it was unfolding, and so I always, made sure that I was squirreling away an extra handbill or a poster or a book that happened to be the current buzz. And I did as many shows as I could. I did a lot of trade shows, and anyway, I was seemed to be at the right place at the right time for tracking this cultural upheaval, if you will. And back then, we also were part of what we felt was an underground culture, an underground movement, and especially given the fact that a lot of people were growing cannabis out there in those hills in Northern California. That's how they were making their land payments.
Mm-hmm.
And this documentary is going to show the direct link between cannabis and the emerging solar technology that began servicing small individual home power systems, not just big solar energy plants for generating power, but for rural homesteaders. So it's going to be a fascinating film. It is a fascinating film. I've already seen it twice, and it's coming back by popular demand. But yeah, so this that story has a place in this Canna collection that I've been curating for many decades. And
I mean, just to give our listeners an idea, like you have the first 5 High Times covers. I mean, I've been to different museums and I've seen different collections. I mean, I've been to the Hash Museum in Barcelona and others, and I was just astounded. And the way you did it, you start with, you go all the way back to when Prohibition first began, and you pair what was happening on the Prohibition side with what was happening on the conscious side and the subversive side and the where people were pushing it in various areas, which of course it's intimately intertwined with cannabis. Right?
It seems like it's always been there. Gosh.
Touch on some of your favorite gems from the museum.
Well, if I could do nothing else, I would love to be curating hemp. I think this plant, this cannabis plant, and hemp is just so it's so exciting that it was just legalized for cultivation in the United States finally, especially under this administration.
Yeah, that was under the Farm Bill, eh?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
okay.
There's some curious things that indeed are unfolding in these remarkable times that we are living in.
Yes.
But yeah, Julie, I have tried to tell some stories and connect a few dots there within the collection, and of course, beginning with Prohibition, it's tough to draw an exact line in the sand, but Harry Anslinger was the one that created
Harry. Oh,
excuse me. that created the legislation in 1937. So that was a strong line in the sand, and so that's really when I started focusing on telling this story. And
on your door you have Harry Anslinger's death posted.
Do you really?
Everybody listening can celebrate.
It's true.
Yeah. I read a lot about him in Jack's book, and he's not a good guy.
not a good guy.
POS. Yes.
So, but anyway, it's been a lot of fun chasing this story, and it's a wild story. It's an incredible story, and so many people's stories are within this big story, and I'm not sure exactly where it's going, but one day soon, I hope we will be able to digitize a lot of it, and we are going to have a brick and mortar location, and
nice.
We're also talking about making a mobile show, which actually we've already done. We've already gone to the Emerald Cup. I think that was in 2014, and the reception was so positive. That's when I really jumped in with both feet and began in earnest tackling this as a project. So it has taken on a life of its own, and people are very excited when they have an opportunity to see it. it isn't open to the public currently because it lacks the proper location. But confident that will be showing up one day soon.
Yep, and you have many different kind of things that you're going to be doing that may give people a chance to see some of the collection. I was astounded to see the first High Times cover, and being, co-owner at Skunk, it was hilarious because I often say I can draw parallels between the Death Star and the Rebel Alliance. And so I saw the first cover and I called it the Anakin Skywalker years because it has, the segments that they're featuring on the front cover is a woman holding a mushroom that she's poised to eat. And then it has the Dalai Lama. It has all of this kind of consciousness stuff. I forget all the segments. And then on the back, it has an advertisement for Timothy Leary's new book. And it's kind of this very kind of gorgeous art design, incredible font. And I'm like, this is High Times. That was how it began. And so, touching and seeing those kind of historical things, it's really incredible. And I just think it's so important. You mentioned Pebbles Trippett and Dennis Perrone, and, there's a lot of kind of green rush energy going on where people are rushing in. And it's so important that the history isn't forgotten and that we don't forget, how we got here, who sacrificed to get us here, the blood, the sweat, and the tears that were, brought forward in this. And so that's why I feel that the museum is so important. And that's why I feel that, that's the devotion for Skunk with this idea of a renaissance, is that we are going to protect these stories and we're going to know, right above the Oracle of Delphi, it says, know thyself, right? So we want to remember.
So you mentioned that it was visually very rich, and indeed it is. And just to take it back to the pipe again, which is, in great part where this collection began. But Phil did all of the art for many years, and it was pulling quite well on the market. And so in around about 1975, I happened to be procuring some products so that we could continue product testing back at the factory. And I was introduced to a gentleman that happened to be there procuring his own inspiration, and he was introduced to me as Larry Todd, or Dr. Atomic by his underground cartoonist name. Mm-hmm. And I was thrilled because I just happened to have a small piece of his artwork that I was carrying around in my back pocket because I found it so visionary and inspirational. I thought, wow, it'd be great to work with someone like this and help us with our marketing. And there it is. We met him. I immediately invited him back to meet the gang, and we all hit it off real well, real fast. And he immediately joined our team and took over the artwork from Phil, so that Phil could focus more on developing the tooling. And Larry began cranking incredible artwork for our brand. And, he's got over half a dozen comics penned under the name Dr. Atomic, and they're all Canna-centric. They are absolutely wonderful and astounding and nutritionally very dense when you're reading them, because you're going to have to read them several times to get all of the jokes in the eyeball candy. But he's been a huge contributor to the culture. He is so prolific; it's mind-boggling. I'm still finding new artwork that he's done for some magazine sometime back in the past, and so we've repartnered with him again on this Mendo pipe, and he's the old war horses are back together again, and we're giving it our best shot and having a great time doing it. And there's some really exciting things that are coming up.
Sounds like old time. Sounds like old times are new again.
Yeah, and it's this idea of art. I wanted to touch on that and give Phil a chance to talk about his art, because he's an incredible artist in his own right. And Skunk is going to start republishing some of this historical material and archival material, and we'd love to showcase Dr. Atomic and his comics. And so, Phil, just touching on, before we head to the final thing about, Mendo Pipe in the 50th year, just touching on the importance of art for you, and your art designs are whimsical and filled with beauty. He does some of the most beautiful globes that are filled with all of these tiny little nuanced designs.
Well, I love to draw planets, and I love to draw fantasy planets. And I think part of the what draws me to it is they are a mandala, which is I believe some kind of a sacred symbol. It's something that is it resonates deeply. A circle resonates deeply in all of our souls, and our planet is round, and most all the planets are round. So it's just it's a beautiful shape, and I love to draw peaceful little planets with little houses and windmills and solar panels and forests and spaceships. Yeah, I am actually, if I want to call myself something, I am a futurist. That's what I've done my whole life, is I chase the future. I love science, and that's what I grew up, why I grew up, a result of growing up with those magazines. And so designing a new future is really an important thing that I think that's what the world needs. We need a better way to prototype a new future together. And Gridbeam is a standard of interchangeability. I'm going to just briefly touch on this again. Whoever is making their own Gridbeam or buying it from us, all of us share the same parts and hole spacing, and all of our parts are interchangeable with each other, so we can work as a team to prototype this brave new world. Nobody knows what it's going to look like. The future is unpredictable. It's going to be a rough and tumble place. We're going to make a lot of mistakes along the way, and Gridbeam allows you to make mistakes and self-correct because it's not welded together, it's bolted together.
Yep, and we're going to do a big article in the next issue of Skunk, actually, that takes people a little bit more into the importance, of this idea of becoming resourceful again as humans, and, taking our strength back, taking our intelligence back, and saying, we can build things, we can, make our own food, we can grow our own cannabis, we can build our own workbench or dry rack or wheelbarrow, because you can literally build, like you said, 30 different things, whatever you can imagine. It's like Legos, but even better, because you can do many different angles. And so if anybody's interested, you can look up Gridbeam for the maker movement, and then we're going to be covering it in an article in the next issue of Skunk as well.
Good. So people can read up more about it in an upcoming issue of Skunk Magazine. Now, you had one more thing you want to touch on before we sign off for the night?
Yeah, so the 50th annual, guys. You guys are having a special pipe designed for the 50th annual. You want to touch on that?
Yeah, well, I'm, as a designer, I love to continue turning this into a piece of art. And so I've added some touches and some new features that I think people are going to especially love, and it's our 50th anniversary pipe.
And we're going to do a giveaway.
We are going to do
We want to do a giveaway at Skunk. So if you're following us on Instagram and Facebook, and follow Mendo Pipe on Instagram and Facebook, you keep your eyes out, because we're going to be planning a special giveaway for one of these beautiful pipes. So stay tuned on that.
Good. So this is can't release any secrets on this 50th edition?
It looks like a little spaceship.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's more user-friendly, has more textures, and it's got a streamlined, all I can say is it looks like a rocket ship.
It's a
good.
And it will take you into another dimension.
Up and away.
That we guarantee.
I just liked your Facebook page, so I'm in.
Thank you. Yeah, we're just rearing up. So
yeah, and Protopipe has a Facebook page as well.
Actually, one more thing that I want to say. I have not mentioned another one of our new partners. His name is Tom Conlon, and he comes from a background in manufacturing. We partnered with Tom 40 years ago in Berkeley, where we rented a 25,000 square foot warehouse and we were manufacturing our protopipes and electric generating windmills. And Tom built all the fabricating equipment. And this was the first company in certainly the United States and probably the world that was manufacturing an electrical windmill. And that helped people in, let's say, the Back to the Land movement. And we now know that windmills are wildly, wildly successful. Anyway, he has brought his talents back and has joined us. And he has, again, a manufacturing background and is automating much of the laborious process so that we can focus on assembly and keeping our costs in line. And yes, keeping our quality as high as possible. So that'll be
for the value of the pipe. And we can speak about so it's currently priced at $80.
That's right.
But we're going to the price is going to go up a little bit with these new design improvements.
With the new one, we do hope to keep stable at $80 for our regular Mendo pipe. But when you see the new one,
that will be a little bit more, and it may even have a serial number. It will have something special about it. But that being said, the idea, though, is that these pipes really last a lifetime. And I literally have had so many people reach out to me when I did this post, letting them know that I was going to be on with you guys, as people are just reaching out and telling me stories about how they still have their pipe and they love their pipe.
I saw on the Instagram post, people were commenting about the pipe and that they still had them and they're great pipes. And then I was reading that.
And apparently you can dab out of it. Well, you can dab out of it. This is just all underground because there's a whole underground counterculture that loves this pipe.
Actually, one of the guys who commented on your Instagram post, his name was Dab and Dan. So there you go.
Okay.
See?
Well, actually, one of my stores just last month told me that somebody paid $700 for one of my early pipes.
Wow.
And a fellow named Paul, who, has quite a background collecting and reselling the pipes, told me a story of one going for $5,300 at an auction. Now I will have to say I don't know the details, and probably somebody wanted to donate that money to a nonprofit anyway. That could be my take on it, but the pipe was
it's
involved.
classic.
Yeah. So these are very collectible.
I wanted to invoke our illustrator of the time, Larry Todd, or Dr. Atomic. In one of his ads, it showed our mascot, whose name was Probot, holding a pipe and saying, "Built like a robot to serve mankind."
There you go. Exactly. Your pipe is serving mankind. Okay, guys, it's shout out time. Time where you can promote, highlight, let people know where you can find you. Rhyme off a couple names of people you want, anything like that that you'd like to throw out there.
Gosh, I guess I should mention our website for Mendo Pipe is mendo-pipe.com. And we also, if you're interested in Gridbeam, our site is about to undergo some remakes. It's basically a way to order Gridbeam from us, which we do make in wood and aluminum. And so that is gridbeam.com.
Okay.
And they do have a book.
Yeah, we have written 2 books on it. One is on the market. You can buy it on Amazon. It's called How to Build with Gridbeam. Buy it from us. And you could actually also buy it from us through our Gridbeam website.
Good. And you're on Instagram as well?
Yes, they're on Instagram, Mendo Pipe, as Mendo Pipe. And if you're interested, you could do hashtag Protopipe, and you can look back at some of the historical pipes and some of the fun. There's a lot of imaginative creativity that people have done with their pipes throughout the decades that it has been around. 1970. Talk about a legacy brand.
Yeah, exactly.
Legacy
How many
brand.
pipes are still around from the 70s? How many pipe manufacturers are still producing pipes from the 70s? It's just...
No, I don't. I
Yeah.
know. I mean, yeah, no, and it's very special. It's why I'm so honored, Phil and Richard, that you have welcomed me here and that you spent time with us and that you guys are doing this, because I do think it's a wonderful thing, and you both are wonderful men, and I'm happy you're out there doing what you're doing. And I'm very proud that we're going to feature them in the next issue of Skunk. Check out skunkmagazine.com. We're doing all kinds of new things. There's a ton of new content flooding in right now from luminaries, young whippersnappers, change makers, stewards, innovators, people who are really doing it. And of course, always the best grow and the best genetics, top breeders in the world. They're all speaking in the space. So check us out online. And then, the magazine, we've gone down to 4 issues a year.
Yeah.
And that's perfect. And we've made the books bigger and filled with even more great information. And,
Nice.
you can visit Barnes & Nobles, head shops, magazine retailers. And things are going to be, John is finishing up his case. He has, his court sentence, his house arrest. He has 2 more months. So Skunk is emerging, out of a very dark period into a very promising period, and really tapping into, all of our global friends who are really doing the work of change on the planet and attempting to, not just line their own pocketbooks, but to really help heal their communities and help bring good things to humanity while also being successful. So that's what Skunk's focus is, and appreciate everyone who stood with us.
Yep, that's right. Okay, let's see. Just a reminder, next week I am joined by my joint host, Kim Cooper, who just happened to have sent me a message and said that she had heard about these pipes when she was a teenager.
That's great.
That is awesome.
Thank you.
And I'm not going to say how old she is, but she's older than Julie. So,
Yeah,
all right.
too.
Yeah. So, all right. Let's see. And her guest is talking about magazines. Her guest is Andrew Shaw of Treating Yourself magazine. He's going to be appearing on the show, and we're going to hear what's going on with them. Let's see. You can find Pace on Twitter, and you can also find us on Facebook. We're on Instagram, and we're online at pace-online.ca. Thank yous go to our sponsors, Canada's largest First Nations cannabis dispensary. That's Legacy 420, and they can be found at legacy420.com. And to Canada's in Campbellford for providing us with a place to help educate the public. And to the man who's medicating on and loving his shadow riser, that is Al Rapp of 420radio.ca. And big thank you to you guys, Phil and Richard, for coming on to the show here tonight and talking to everybody about your pipe. It's got quite the history.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Al and Al. It's been a pleasure here with Julie.
All right, and thank you to you, Julie, as well for jumping on here and going right at it right away.
Thank you, Al, so much. It's such a pleasure. I'm so happy to be sharing in this with you. You're an awesome friend in the community, and appreciate all you do. And thank you, Phil and Richard. It's an honor. You guys are incredible, and thank you for taking the time to be with us tonight.
Thank you
very much. Thank you, Julie.
Yep. Thank you, everybody, and including our listeners. Thank you, and good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Legacy 420 has medicinal and recreational products down to a science, literally. With 2 biochemists on staff and a chief scientific advisor, every product is tested in the Legacy 420 laboratory. Legacy 420, Tyendinaga. Open 9 to 9 every day. Visit legacy420.com.
So what are you doing? Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.